Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be discussing and analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up for the past 24 or so hours. AMD have just recently launched the Ryzen 3000 series processors, of course, powered by the Zen 2 processor architecture. But we all know that AMD's roadmap for the next couple of years is going to be very aggressive, and we've already seen that AMD are well in development for Zen 3, and Zen 4 is currently in design. But the lead architect for the Zen 5 processor has reconfirmed that it's in development. So the existence of Zen 5 was actually confirmed by AMD in a video by the name of Ryzen processors 1 year later. This actually took place during the Zen Plus launch, and in an end note, AMD stated, and I quote, "Zen 5 is an AMD internal codename for a future generation of the Zen architecture and is subject to change." There was some confusion though that Zen 5 was simply Zen 4, but because 4 is an unlucky number in the Asian culture, people thought, well, maybe AMD are just simply gonna jump from Zen 3 to Zen 5, but this isn't not the case, because back in November of 2018, we also learned that Zen 4 is in development as well. Of course, Zen 2 is now shipping, Zen 3 is coming along rather nicely, and Zen 4 back then is in design. So now, switching to the current situation, David Suggs, who is a CPU micro architect at AMD, he is a fellow at AMD actually, which is one of the higher positions at the company. He is also serving as the chief architect of Zen 2. So his duty now is switched to Zen 5, where he's going to be the chief architect for the upcoming processor. Now, of course, this CPU is not going to launch tomorrow, not by any stretch of the imagination. Most likely it's going to happen post-2021, because from what we've seen from AMD's roadmaps, Zen 4 launches in 2021, so therefore we can expect Zen 5 to come to market by around 2022. From what we understand, Zen 3 will be using the 7nm Plus node, and then AMD are expected to move to 5nm by the time we see Zen 4 ship. So according to the documentation provided by TSMC in a press blurb, N5 has entered a risk production in the first quarter, and we expect customer tapeouts starting this quarter and volume production ramp up in the first half of 2020 with a 1.8 times logic density and a 15% speed gain and an ARM A72 core compared to 7nm. We believe our N5 technology is the most competitive in the industry. With the best density, performance, power and best transistor technology, we expect most of our customers who are using 7nm today will adopt 5nm. With N5, we are confident our customer product portfolio and increasing our addressable market. Thus, we are confident that 5nm will have a large and long-lasting node for TSMC. I don't think AMD will be doing another Plus processor, much like they did with the Zen Plus CPUs. I don't think we're going to see a Zen 2 Plus or a Zen 3 Plus. So, in theory, that's actually much worse for Intel if they continue the trend that they've set with Zen 2 from Zen 1. In other words, there should be a rather large IPC gain. Whether we're going to see an increase in core count or whether it's going to just be IPC, and also what happens for the frequencies and other things, are going to be very interesting. But either way, I think over the next couple of years, Intel will definitely have a lot of competition across a plethora of different markets. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. And while we're on the subject of the Ryzen CPUs, we might as well also touch on the PCIe 4.0 situation with older boards. So we are referring, of course, to X470 and below. Recently, Asus confused the matter a little bit because they provided a BIOS update so that certain motherboards, not all of the Ryzen motherboards, but certain motherboards would work with PCIe 4.0. So if you had, for example, a 3700X, you could run PCIe 4.0 with that processor on an older board. So there was some confusion then what was actually going on, because AMD had come out and said that they are not going to be supporting PCIe 4 with older boards such as the 300 series, and AMD have issued a statement. It's pretty short, to put it mildly, but they have spoken to Anantech, and they have said, and I quote, "Our plan is unchanged. For the reliability and consistency reasons cited at Computex, we intend to disable PCIe Generation 4 for pre-X570 motherboards. That AGISA is being released to motherboard manufacturers soon." Oh dear. So what does this mean for you? Well, you can use a basically beta BIOS to give yourself PCIe 4.0 on your board. The thing is, it is a beta BIOS, so that may not be a big deal for you, but you may get performance improvements, stability improvements, or general other tweaks if you decide to update the BIOS. So you're going to have to make a decision. Do you run with the older BIOS, the beta BIOS, so that you have PCIe 4.0 support on, let's say, your X470 board, or do you update your board so that obviously you've got the latest BIOS but then lose PCIe 4.0 functionality? Currently the only GPU that's available on the market, which is PCIe 4.0, is of course AMD's own RX 5700 series. So in terms of GPU, it's not going to make that much of a difference, honestly. But for high performance SSDs, that could be an entirely different situation. I suspect that we're going to get modified BIOSes, which may give you the best of both worlds, hopefully. But yeah, this is going to be one of those situations where you're going to have to pretty much pick your own poison. We also have a couple of pieces of Intel news, the first of which is the next generation Atom processors will actually feature a level 3 cache, which is rather different. So the next generation Atoms that we're referring to is actually Tremont, and from the roadmap that Intel have provided, this is going to be part of Lakefield, which of course is a Foveros based CPU. The brilliantly named 01.org, I don't know why that entertains me so much. Anyway, 01.org is a website that's actually owned by Intel, and it hosts various open source projects managed by the company, and one of those projects is Perfmon. So basically that's a performance monitoring tool, if the name didn't give it away to you. Typically it's used mostly by developers to figure out what the bottleneck is for a specific branch of code. For example, am I being memory bandwidth constrained, or am I having issues with like cache misses or whatever. So now we actually have Snowridge, which has been uploaded onto the platform, and there's something really interesting with this, and that is that we actually have level 3 cache monitoring listed, which pretty much obviously is an indicator that yes, level 3 cache will be present on Atoms. So this means that in theory anyway, we will actually see more performance, because obviously the benefit of cache is that you have faster memory, which is closer to the chip itself, and it basically means that you don't have to spend resources grabbing an instruction from memory. It's a lot quicker in terms of access time. Obviously, level 1 cache is closer and faster compared to level 3 cache, and yes, I'm aware I'm vastly simplifying this, but still, level 3 cache is going to improve the performance of the chip, but it does so with a couple of negatives. The first negative is pretty obvious: it takes space. It basically eats up more die space to do that. The other negative though with level 3 cache is it still requires energy to run. It's not there just for good feelings and happiness. So because of that, it may increase the power consumption of the chip a little more compared to not having level 3 cache present. Then again, you can also argue that with the performance improvements, plus as well power gating and also less frequent hits to the memory, maybe Intel feel it's the trade-off that's worth it. We also don't have any information regarding the cache layout. So we don't know, for example, how it's divided up between the different processor cores or anything else. All we know is that it's present. But it's kind of cool though. And now I'm going to finish the video off with Intel's neuromorphic Loihi chip. Well, actually 64 of them. That's right, they are scaling up the project rather substantially. It now contains 8 million neurons. So this is a very different design from, let's say, a 9900K or a Ryzen processor or whatever else. It's very different because it doesn't even have a global clock signal. This chip can be up to 128 cores and it's based on the 14nm process. Now, according to Intel anyway, with the current announcement of Loihi Beach, which is the project, Intel have scaled up Loihi to be a 16 chiplet system. So now we have 8 million neurons, and this is a total die area of 3,840 square millimeters. Or, if you prefer to say it in the number of transistors, it's a princely 132 billion of them, which is quite a lot. So in terms of benchmarks, Chris L. Smith, who is the co-CEO of Applied Brain Research and the professor of University of Waterloo, this is an exact quote from him, with the Loihi chip we've been able to demonstrate 109 times lower power consumption running a real-time deep learning benchmark compared to a GPU. That's very impressive. And a 5 times lower power consumption compared to a specialized IoT inference hardware. Even better, as we scale the network up by over 50 times, Loihi maintains real-world performance results and uses only 30% more power, whereas the IoT hardware uses 500% more power and is no longer real-time. As you can probably imagine, currently the research team are actually figuring out what applications, what tasks, what is best for a neuromorphic type of computer compared to a more traditional one, and how to best use it in a commercial type of environment. So this actually was announced, or the project was announced back in 2017, September 2017, so it's almost 2 years ago now that we've seen the project be in development, and by the end of this year, Intel are hoping to reach 100 million neurons with Loihi Springs. I think this is really cool, and it's going to be a very interesting project to follow along. So yeah, I think this is a really cool project, and it's going to be very curious to see exactly what comes of it and what type of applications it does end up. I think this is a really cool project, and I'm going to be following it quite closely because for some reason it just kind of intrigues me that we're thinking of a computer almost like this. I think it's a really cool project, and it will be interesting to see by the end of the year what it's capable of. With all of that said, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you did, then definitely subscribe to the channel and consider sharing the video and giving it a like because it helps us out a ton. You can also find us on Patreon as well as various social media platforms, which of course is linked in the description of this very video. But for now, I'm going to get going, so take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Bye for now.